Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on your favorite Little's Law YouTube channel. So, in this set of videos, we are going to see some of the interview questions, and that's been asked in the interview. So, we'll discuss those questions and the answers in this video, and this will be very helpful for your interview. And I wish you all the very best. And there were like a lot of our subscribers who are getting placed in very good organizations by watching these questions and answers session, and they have even informed, they messaged me in the chat. So I wish you again all the very best for your interviews. And now let's go to the very first question in this interview question and answer session video. So the first question is, the interviewer might ask you that why are you encountering errors or why are you receiving errors with the correlated value during execution, even though it functioned properly or it worked properly during the script enhancement or during your script working or even during your script creation, right? So basically the question is, the correlation value is working during your script creation, but it is failing during your load test. So what could be your answer for this question, right? So your answers should start in this manner, or you can take the interviewer through this way. And again, I'm saying like you have to add lots of keywords, and that will help you to showcase that you have a lot of knowledge in terms of performance testing and in terms of your correlation knowledge. So this issue could be due to several reasons, and there is no one particular reason. So the most common reasons are the correlated value might be dynamic and changing more frequently than we expect in the script. And you have to ensure that the extraction logic captures the values accurately each time. So basically, this is a very common issue, which is the correlation value, or the correlated value might be dynamic and it might be changing more frequently than expected. And there were some scenarios where the left boundary and the right boundary even might be changing. So this is the reason why your correlation value might fail. And the second scenario is the session or the context might have changed, which causes the correlation to fail, because we have to verify that all the previous steps leading to the correlation are successful, right? So that is the second reason. So again, let me reiterate to you. So the session or the context might have changed, which causes the correlation to fail, and we have to verify that all the previous steps leading to the correlation are successful, because if some of them fail, then automatically the next steps will also fail. And now the third common reason is there could be changes in the application between the time the script was created and during its execution. So something might have been changed, or something might have been disturbed, or something might have been quite changed in terms of the correlation values. The like I told you, the left boundary or the right boundary, or even the value that you're correlating. Right? So we have to revalidate the script with the latest application build. So that is another way of fixing this issue, where the correlation issue was where it was working fine when you're creating your script, and it was failing during your load test, right? And now the fourth and the last reason, so we have to check for the timing issues or for any delays that might affect the value extraction. So you have to use think time, or you have to use, and I would say like you have to use both the think time and the pacing to synchronize the script with the application response time. So once you do this, automatically the application will wait for the response to load. So by the time the response gets loaded, automatically the correlation value or the correlation response will be taken from the previous response, and it will be passed. So automatically it works fine. So again, the thing is, you have to check for the timing issues. Like you have to wait until the application gets loaded completely, until its last byte of data, or any delays that might affect the value extraction. So you have to use think time or pacing if necessary to synchronize the script with the application response times, right? So I believe this is going to be our first. I mean, like these are like some of the industry related real time examples or real time scenarios where you might face these issues, and you have to answer this question. So now let's move on to the second question. So now moving on to the second question. So the question goes like, assuming you are receiving a dynamic value in a specific message, what would be your approach to correlation? So basically this question talks about how would you do correlation when you are receiving some dynamic value in a specific message or in a certain message. So the answer goes like this. So to correlate dynamic values, I will identify the dynamic value in the response using tools like JMeter's response extractor or load runner correlation studio. So if I'm recording the same script twice, I can compare the dynamic values. So that's one way to identify what are the dynamic values that's been changing during each scripting. And then I'll use the regular expression or boundary based extraction to capture the dynamic value. And third step is I will store the captured value, which is the correlated value, in a variable, and then I will replace the hard-coded dynamic value in subsequent requests with the correlated value with the basically the variable, and then finally I will test the correlation to ensure it is capturing the correct value consistently across iterations. So these are the 5 steps which I do in the scenario where I'm getting a dynamic value in a certain message, and this is how I will correlate. And now we'll move to the third question. So here we go with the third question. So in the terms of collecting the non-functional requirements or during a non-functional requirements collection, you came to know that the business analyst is unaware of any transactions. So how would you proceed, or you came to know that the BA cannot help you or he could not help you in collecting the non-functional requirements. So how would you proceed? What will be your procedure or the process? So when the business analyst does not know about the transactions, I can very well conduct exploratory testing to understand the application's functionality and the typical user interaction. So I'll go and do exploratory testing. So that will help me to understand the basic functionality of the application, and also what are the critical transactions, which is the typical user interactions. And then the next step is I will use the application logs, the monitoring logs, and the analytics to identify the key transactions and the user paths, and I can collect these details from the tools. And then the third part is I will collaborate with the developers and the system architects to understand the backend process and the workflow. So basically, this step will involve understanding the architecture, because once you understand the architecture, you will very well understand the backend process and the workflows. And then the fourth step is you will analyze the user stories or the requirement documents for hints on the critical transaction. So basically, if the BA could not help you with the requirement, you can analyze the critical transactions using the user stories or in the requirement document. Right? Say, for example, there will be requirement document for the developers, for the functional testers, so you can collect from them. So it's not like something like if the BA does not know anything about performance testing, the gate is closed. It's there are like lots of other sources where we can collect the information. And then finally, by utilizing any available documentation that is available in any of these teams, and by using the user guides, you can derive any potential transactions. So this is for the question number 3, and now we'll move on to the question number 4. So coming back to the fourth question, and this is most interesting question I would say in this list of questions. So the question goes like this: so the interviewer is asking, given that your application operates in UK, US, and Canada, and that we have test scripts and CSV files stored in GitHub or Azure repo, something in a cloud repo, and what would be your strategy for executing the same script across different regions? So this is basically a distributed testing. It comes under distributed testing, and again, the test scripts and the CSV files are stored in different locations, which is in different repo. Yes, so we can handle it. So let me tell you how to do this. So to execute the same script in different regions, firstly, I will ensure that the scripts are parameterized with region specific data if needed, which is in terms of the URL or in terms of the credentials. So that's the very first step. So I'll make sure that the scripts are parameterized with the region specific data. The second part is I will use cloud based performance testing tool or distributed load testing approach that allow me to deploy load generators in different regions. Say, for example, if I'm using JMeter, I will use distributed load testing where I can handle the master and slaves in different locations. Or if I'm using Neoload, I will use Neoload Web, where I will use the uh, load generators from different regions, or if I'm using load runner, I will use load runner web, or in case if I'm using Azure load testing, I can effectively use the load generators. I can connect the load generators from different locations. That's the second step. And the third step is I will pull the latest scripts and data files from the GitHub repo or Azure repo or whatever the repositories they set up before each test run. And then the fourth step is I will configure the load generators or the agents to run in the desired regions. Say, for example, it can be in US or it can be in Canada, so wherever I can set them via the cloud. So I will configure the load generators or the agents to run in the desired regions. And finally, I will monitor and compare the performance metrics across the regions to identify any region specific issues. So these are the five things which I would do in terms of testing the application from different regions. So now we'll move on to the last question of this video, which is the fifth question. So now moving on to the last question of this video, where you get a question from the interviewer, and he's asking that there is a scenario where an application has a launch and a login process. So what could be the potential issue if an error or a white space is encountered while you are trying to record with your tool? It can be JMeter, or it can be Neoload, or it can be Load Runner. So you are getting a white space or white like a white blank screen or an error when you're trying to attempt or when you're trying to record it. So now what will be your answer? So you must try to answer in an analysis mode. So this issue could be due to any of the SSL or TLS certificate issues. So I will ensure that the recording tool handles the HTTPS traffic properly and that necessary certificates are installed. So that's the very first thing. So I will make sure that there are no SSL or TLS certificate issues. So I'll make sure that it is handled properly. And then the second part is the proxy settings. So the proxy settings, if they are not properly configured or if they are not correctly configured, the recording tool or the browser might face the issues while recording. And then the third option, the third analysis I would do is the applications nowadays using modern JavaScript frameworks that dynamically loads content, which makes it difficult for recording tools to capture. So this is my another analysis in terms of the errors or in terms of the blank space, blank response. And the fourth one is the network or firewall settings, which are blocking the recording tools traffic. So that's the fourth analysis in terms of the empty response or the error response. And then the fifth one is the browser settings or extensions which are interfering with the recording process. So I make sure that there are no unwanted extensions, or I make sure the browser settings are set up properly to record the transactions. And finally, I would check for the logs or error messages from the recording tool for more specific insights. And by doing this, I can collect the or I would know the reason for the errors. So that's the final way or final call to attend this error. So I will check the logs or error messages from the recording tool for more specific insights. So with that, I come to an end, and I believe this video will be very useful to you. So we'll meet another interview questions very shortly. Until then, it's bye bye from Rajan and your favorite Little Slaw YouTube channel. Bye bye.